Hey there, it's Cornelis here with my good friend Izzy, my
Hi.
long-term friend and collaborator. And today I'm just going to talk to her a little bit about the artwork that she did for a selection of songs which I retroactively decided to call One Track Mind, a set of 6 songs. And the first of those songs, Comfortable Silence, was released in 2021, December 2021, and basically I approached Izzy to help me out with the artwork for this project. So I didn't know there was going to be a selection of songs. I didn't know how many and the full extent of the project at the time. But yeah, so I approached you, and
Yeah.
how did that happen? What do you remember? What happened?
I think you first mentioned that you wanted to have consistent style across that series. And I think you sent me like 5 or 4 demos. So that was a good starting point for
Okay.
us to start the conversation.
Yeah, so something that I think about when it comes to artwork is to
Yeah.
have, as you said, a consistent style and something to visually not just represent it, but to set it apart from
Yeah.
other music that I've done. So you've I've some of my first releases I did the artwork myself, and
Yeah.
then you started doing artwork for me, and because the music for this project was going to be a bit different, it was conceived in the COVID times, so I didn't have a band. I was messing around with Logic, making a different kind of music. I thought, okay,
Yeah.
I need to have a different visual representation,
Sure.
and so that's what I mentioned when I was first talking to you about this.
Yes. And that was supposed to be something that what I basically loved about that collaboration was also that I had so much freedom with coming up with ideas. And my initial reaction to it was that I wanted definitely to have female protagonist, and but very vivid colors. And I was very happy that you approved that. That you were like, yeah, you're on board with this idea. And but for each song, with each art cover, album cover, we it was slightly different. So it was going with whatever the mood of the song was, or whatever the lyrics were saying. So I think having that overarching style, but still each of the artworks had its particular
Mm.
I don't know, just different
Yeah,
moods.
let's just go
Yeah.
back to the setting the mood, as it
Yeah.
were, because this is working with you. What you'd like to have is, okay, do you have any ideas?
Yeah.
And one thing that you can do is have a mood board, so just a
Yeah.
collection of ideas. And the music, it had my, a kind of a alternative singer songwriter aspect to it, but then there was this hip hop electronic element to it,
Yeah.
and I wanted to emphasize the singer songwriter indie rock grungy side of things through the artwork, to so that as a listener that would be highlighted. So I remember coming to you and giving examples of various flyers
Yeah.
and posters from DIY punk bands and grunge bands and alternative bands and artists from the 70s and 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
So in what ways did that kind of inform what you ended up doing?
It definitely informed the mood and kind of the I would say the color palettes and the setup of the scenes. So for example, each of the artworks I created, they have its own, almost like a story. So you look at the person and you can imagine where they're coming from, or what is their story. And I think that's kind of what I took from it. But also I wanted to be current. So I went with more of like a digital look rather than, let's say, I don't know, um, analog made photographs. Or I just wanted to look kind of similar, because like digitally made and illustrative as well.
Mm-mm.
Mm.
Yeah, and then you said that you went with female protagonists, which I hadn't mentioned anything like that.
Yeah.
Although sometimes I think I do mention that having faces is can be a good thing. When I collaborate with people, I like to give people a free rein, but sometimes I do. There's some things that I mention that just as if somebody is going down a certain route, then they might have that in mind as well. But like I don't want to tell people like too closely exactly what they want to do. So the process. How does it go when? Do you listen to the song a couple of times? Are you literally listening to it over and over? Like, how does that work?
The second one, over and over. I really like to be immersed in music and really feel it, almost memorize it, because that way I can just switch it off and then run the ideas through my brain. And that really helps me to feel it. So if there is... So I don't want to, for example, go with the cliches as well. And quite often, as an artist, it's so simple to just go with first idea. So I kind of like that initial reaction, but then also working with different approaches, maybe changing the compositions or just playing around with it, but still listening to the music. So it's not just kind of from my head, it's a reaction to the music.
And do the lyrics come into it at all? Because I will send you the lyrics, but I don't have the expectation that I'm singing about a train, so there must be a train in the I don't have that expectation at all. I just provide the lyrics to you in case it's useful for you.
Yeah.
Does that play a part at all, or?
I think it does, but it's not always that. It's not always that straight up, like you can see it in the image. Sometimes it's a feeling, or for example, there is in one verse, for example, in Broken, there's mention about the light. So even though the song is quite, let's say for the majority quite dark, but there is a mention of light. So I thought there needs to be an element in the image that will show that. So, or I don't know, there is one song about nightclubs, so there needed to be someone who's actually, ready to go out or in that kind of environment. So I think there could be elements that allude to the lyrics, or there could be, the mood that comes from the lyrics and the music. So it varies from each one of them.
Now, of course, you love all of my songs and they're all amazing. But, so hypothetically, or maybe it's with other artists who don't, whose music you don't like. No, but like, okay, is there ever a situation where like, if a song isn't really hitting for you, how does that? Is it more difficult? Or do you just then think, well, I've listened to it once or twice and now I can do it? Or
I find something about this song that is I can relate to. There is always something that I can find. Maybe it's instrumental version. Maybe it's a chorus or some element that I can find, and I can find something that I enjoy. And this is my way in.
Okay.
And I love creating, so creative process is something that I really enjoy. So as soon as I find that little thing, it's simple. But it's a good question. It's a good question.
Now, Izzy is an award-winning animation director.
Yes, correct.
And animationist.
Yes.
There's a difference between directing and actually doing the animation.
There is, but quite often animation directors do animate. So
right. Yeah. So she does both, obviously, and you've directed and animated short films.
Yes.
One of which has won an award, and is there any difference? Well, what is the difference between doing a static image versus doing an animation in terms of kind of the impulse behind it? Obviously, it's technically a different thing,
Yeah.
but is there any difference in like the impulse and maybe specifically if you're doing something for somebody else versus something that is your own project? What kind of things go on in your mind?
It's a really good question, but I can go on about it for 2 hours. You do have time. So first of all, difference between creating a still image and animation. I think creating still image allows for more spontaneity, and you can actually include all story, the whole thing in one single frame. Whereas in animation or film, there needs to be a growth in the story. There needs to be development same in music, I suppose, because it's time based, right? So you need to kind of plan things and again make sure that it's interesting. And with one image, I mean, you can again, it needs to still follow certain rules. However, I think it kind of makes it more immediate to create, whereas animation, as we know, takes ages to create. So I really like to use both mediums. So I have that room for experimentation, trying new ideas in illustration. And then if I'm going for more ambitious, not that this is not ambitious, but more kind of long-term projects where it actually is time-based, then it does require more planning, more careful consideration of, is this something I really want to do? But yeah, it's good to do both of them. And then you asked about difference between working for kind of my own personal projects and working for somebody else. So it's a really good question, because at the moment I'm actually trying to develop something for myself. I had that idea for over a year, and I think what is great actually working with somebody is that kind of deadline. There is someone actually waiting. There's someone who actually provides you already. So you're not starting the blank page.
Yeah.
You have lyrics, you have music, so you already have directions, and that's great. And then you can bounce the ideas because you're working hopefully with someone who who has some kind of vision, hopefully as well. Just not necessarily they have to tell you what to do, but kind of guide you within the process. So even by saying no, that's not what I want, it's still helpful. Rather than just kind of you and the blank page and kind of no time limitations. So I think they're slightly different processes. Yeah.
Okay.